Hello. The topic of this research work is about how does sentence length influence to the consecutive interpretation. And let's say something about the introduction of this research work. We say that the activity of interpretation is linked to and depends on time. Unlike a written translation, both traditionally identified modes of interpreting, simultaneous and consecutive, are heavily marked by the temporal load. Whereas translators have impulse time at their hands to search for the most accurate terms and to express themselves in the best possible style. The ultimate deadline being set by the publisher, interpreters' choices are severely restricted in the process of intensely converting oral messages at a speed which is about 30 times faster than that of the translators. However, such a sample of translation and interpreting would definitely present a false picture of the relation between the interpreted modes, although both the modes are affected by heavy temporal loads. Consecutive and simultaneous interpreting differs markedly in terms of the time pressure involved. Also, we may say that any discussion of the temporal aspects of interpreting requires a consideration of the issues of external pacing, which conditions the processing capacity management in both consecutive and simultaneous interpretation. Unlike translators, interpreters are forced to work at speech delivery speed, but although both CI and SI are governed by the time constraint to some extent, the problem requires different dimensions in simultaneous and consecutive interpreting. We may say that the interpreter should hear clearly not only to the speaker but also hears other own output, which has to be monitored closely all the time, according to Hasmin and Manson, mentioned in 1997. May say that still being dependent on the speaker's past input. Thus, may say that the ability to cultivate distributed tension between input comprehension and output production is an important prerequisite for successful performance in CI in consecutive interpreting. Talking something about the background of this, we say we come up to significance of study. And we say that to minimize the impact of time pressure in interpreting, interpreters can resort to various strategies. The following sections attempt to present those strategies that are employed in case of time management problems. However, a clear-cut vision of the interpreting strategies according to the individual constraint is not always visible, as the needs to adapt particular text might be overlap. For instance, naturalization necessary at time because of the shared knowledge constraint are favored over explanation or paraphrasing due to excessive time pressure. Thus, the choice of particular tactic is not random, but follows certain guidelines. The one applied in the above example in the rules minimizing recovery interference and follows the basic principles of the processing capacity management that the way one segment is processed affects the ability of processing capacity for the processing of other segments. Now, passing to the statement of the problem, I say that the statement of the problem is how does sentence length influence the interpreter performance in consecutive interpreting? The second one, according to what extent its communication depends on a good performance? The third one, what is the effect of sentence length in a good interpretation? And the fourth one, do short or medium or long sentences have the same effect to the interpreter performance? Now, discussing them later, now we are going to pass into the definition of the terminology, and the keywords here are included, such as consecutive interpreting, sentences length, short sentences, medium sentences, and long sentences. So let's take them one by one. Passing to consecutive interpreting, we may say that according to consecutive interpreting, the interpreter has to perform in front of the same audience as the speaker does, according to Meckingshon. So, saying in other words, the consecutive interpreter always has to work in an audience, but working with the people, it's not an easy job. It means that it's really difficult. Passing to the sentence length. The numbers of the word by sentence length we mean the numbers of the words in the sentence that express a complete thought. Short sentence we mean short sentences present an idea clearly, but too many of them in succession can make speaking seem awkward and simplistic. However, a few well-placed short sentences can add emphasis. Medium-length sentences we mean they allow space to connect ideas and add details while remaining clear and easy to understand. Uh, Such about long sentences, we may say that they establish complex interrelationship and include substantial amounts of amplification and clarification. Use them sparingly to emphasize relationships and to incorporate significant details. Something we may see about literature review is that talking about consecutive interpreting is another point, is an important point because the most important is the way the interpreter considers the interpretation. Interpreting in consecutive, it's not only translating the words or thoughts from source language to target language, but the way how the interpreter gives the message to the audience. And we may say that the interpreter is considered an artist. It's like an actor. When a speaker speaks, the audience attention is focused on him. But when the audience does not have enough knowledge about the source language of which the speaker is talking about, all the attention passes on to the interpreter. Now, passing to the methodology, we may say that important choice, the importance of coherence of interpretation as one of the pedagogical objectives in consecutive interpreting has been underlined by many authors such as Gall, Gonzalez, and Dustin, on the grounds that a good interpreter is tended to give a convincing statement. But as far as the interpreter act is concerned, according to Dustin, suggests that the structure of the conceptual relation is important from the purpose of communication. An essential characteristic of a successful interpretation is coherence, a guarantee of the communication effectiveness of the production quality. Reporting on the evaluation of the different consecutive speech interpretation by students, he underlines the essential importance of the macrostructural comprehension of the message, more than its macrolinguistic one. This idea that the interpreter must be able to clearly distinguish a macrotext versus a microtext seems to be a key element to elaborate an effective note-taking system. To manage the word at the macrostructural level instead of the macrolinguistic one, to therefore to train students to deliver coherent interpretation. According to Bestin, the monolingual exercise with notes, then bilingual exercise without notes, and finally bilingual exercise with notes. To come up to the conclusion, we say that short sentences present an idea, clearly idea, but too many of them in succession can make speaking seem simple and understandable. However, a few well-placed short sentences can add emphasis. So, according to medium-length sentences, they allow space to connect ideas and add details while remaining clear and easy to understand. What about long sentences? They establish complex interrelationship and include substantial amounts of amplifications and clarifications. What can we add at the conclusion? It is noted that generally interpreters use different lengths of sentences. Sentences is a mixture of words to signify complete sense of thought. It depends on the number of words. The length of the sentence is measured by the number of words appearing in it. The shape of the typical sentence length distribution is positively swinged, that is. And also we may say that it has been argued that on long scale the distribution of sentence length resembles that of the normal distribution. That's all about this work.